Resident Evil 4 Remake is a good place to start because I tweeted out, I wish everyone could have heard the scream from Ryan, the pure excitement and joy.
Yeah. I feel like just one of the luckiest people in the world because like over the last few years, like two of my favorite games of all time were Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening, which got a gorgeous remake, and Resident Evil 4, which is also getting a gorgeous remake. I freaked out. That game looks stunning. It surpassed even my wildest dreams of what I could expect from it. The scene where Leon is entering the village for the first time, the second I heard the Spanish guitars and saw the letter R, I'm like, we are in. This is it. Because that's how that game starts out.
Well, no, at first we were like, Red Dead? Last of Us? The other guitar game.
I was like, is it called Fractions now? Is that the Last of Us multiplayer?
It is so gorgeous and moody and atmospheric. The game always was. It seems like there's like new perspectives, new content here potentially. Obviously, like we've seen these games before, kind of slimmed down from the original versions. Resident Evil 4 itself is a massive game. It is one of the biggest, longest third-person story-driven games ever made. It comes from an era of video games where they were allowed to do that. I guess at the time they were just like, we're going to keep scoping this game, keep adding stuff. So I mean, it's a huge game. I don't know if we'll get all of it in the remake. I don't want to get to that part yet where I'm popping, the balloons in my brain and losing hope. But for now, I am so excited for this. This is so beautiful, so gorgeous, and we got a release date.
Yeah, I was going to say you'll know when you can pop those balloons because we know it's coming March 24th, 2023.
That's right.
And we'll also include PSVR 2 support, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, just to go over, it was a lengthy trailer. Like this was a big, expansive look at this remake, and I think to your point of like, will it be the full game? Will it have new perspectives? We have certainly seen Capcom take some liberties in the remakes and not do necessarily beat for beat, but also stuff that is very beat for beat. So I imagine it'll be a mix of both.
Yeah, and like Resident Evil 4, if you haven't played it, is one of the most like sort of visually diverse games ever made. You're in swamps, you're in forests, you're in castles. The last third of the game is basically like in a battlefield. There's just so much going on. It's so moody and spooky. It does jump scares well. It does. I mean, it to me, it reinvented the genre, survival horror in general. I'm so happy right now. This is. Whatever, you guys do the rest of the show. That's all I needed. That was so good.
That's what we said. If the state of play had been just that would have been good enough. That would have been a great state of play.
Summer of Gaming is off to a good start for me. That was at the top of the list for me. I'm so happy right now.
That was the opening announcement. Yeah, that was pretty awesome. Max, how did you feel about that?
Very happy. Yeah. I'm a very late adopter of RE4 because I hang out with him all the time. He's like, play it already. I was like, okay, fine. It's such a good game. It's so much fun, and even playing the original like really holds up incredibly well. And it's interesting to look at this because like RE, the remakes of 2 and 3, really stunning, gorgeous, brilliant games. Obviously, they had to take some liberties, cut some stuff down, but they're also just like they're breathtaking to look at. And I remember playing those and being like, how are they going to do this with 4? And the answer is a generational leap. Like, this is very clearly going to be a next-gen game, and it makes sense because there's a generational leap between 2 and 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Like, I think that the, PS5's, like, loading capabilities and just how it's able to kind of, spin up new worlds without having to throw you on a loading screen is going to be really huge for this. And, I mean, this is definitely visually stunning. I think it is very important to get in front of this right now. I will be shocked and aghast if this is the entirety of RE4 remade from the ground up. Like, I think there are going to be some concessions and some things that are tweaked and altered to sort of maybe not streamline it, but make it so that they can fit enough stuff in there, make it fit right. But I'm definitely not complaining. It looks phenomenal.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. Jada, what did you think of it?
I loved it. I love Resident Evil 4. I love the Resident Evil franchise. Like 4 came at such a formative years for a lot of us when we were playing games. Like it was that transition from the older Resident Evil style gameplays and we got this third-person action, and 4 just really nailed it and brought it home. The one thing I'm missing out of this trailer, though, is what you buying, stranger?
Yeah,
where's the merchant?
We need to see that merchant.
We need the merchant.
He'll be the next trailer, I'm sure. That's a perfect sound up from like Total Black, and then just here's the guy. There
got some red things on sale for you, stranger. Yeah.
Brian, because you are the RE4 Uber fan, I do have to ask. I have not played the original yet. Do you think I should before this, or just go in cold?
Oh man. Well, you got a year. I'd say play it, and then you'll appreciate it. I think it still holds up. It's got that pop and shot gameplay. You are not running and gunning.
Yeah.
You stop and shoot, and so that takes a minute to calibrate too. But once you do, you realize the entire game designed around that. Now, whether or not that will make it into the remake, that's one of my interesting questions. That's having a lot more dynamic gameplay was added to 2 and 3, and so we'll see what happens here. But I'm all for it. We also got to mention of some VR content coming to it.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because they remade the game entirely for Oculus, and now they're remaking the game entirely again for PS5 and making a VR port or sorts of
what
it.
the sort of cart and horse of that is.
Yeah.
Because could that have been sort of a dry run to be like, which parts of this work in VR and which don't?
100%.
Yeah,
I think that's
totally.
exactly what they were doing. It was a test run to see like what works in VR, what doesn't. And I think it's going to be kind of like how we got Resident Evil 6, right? 7. Right, 7, yeah. Where 7 had a VR version of it. And I think this is going to be kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely a lot easier to take a first-person game and dump that in VR than a
Yes.
third
For
person.
sure.
That's kind of like a very odd science experiment, but
Yeah,
news.
they
Very
have that
exciting.
blueprint, but it will be interesting because I assume this will be third person,
Yeah.
like the other remakes, like the original was. But yeah, we'll see what they do.
This is
That-
one of my favorite video game announcements of all time. I am so happy right now.
It was so great. Yeah, that was a phenomenal way that started off the State of Play, and we'll get into what followed after that. We're just going to celebrate Brian for the rest of the show. But we will get to all the other VR stuff that came after that. I do want to talk about some of the other heavy hitters that came throughout the show,
good work.
shall we
Yes.
say.
Good work.
I stole that from the State of Play. Street Fighter 6 got a full trailer. No longer do we have... Also, we got a new logo. First of all,
Yeah,
We got a new logo, yes.
Jada, what did you think of this reveal?
Oh my god, it's everything I wanted to see in a Street Fighter 6 trailer. Like, the combat looks so fun, it looks fast, it's fluid. I love that they're going back to this kind of like graffiti art, watercolor type of effects on the fights. It looks like they're bringing back some form of the focus attacks from Street Fighter 4, so it looks like they're really listening to the fans who really loved 4 and had some misgivings about 5. I just hope that they really have learned from 5 where there wasn't enough content at launch.
Yeah.
And they're making up for that. And I think that's part of why they're doing this kind of like we saw Luke exploring and climbing ladders and walking around.
Yeah.
That
Like
was-
it was so
you said you wanted to see fighting, and I said I wanted to see the street, which was a joke. But here we
saw
go.
both.
Yeah.
They're putting the street back in Street Fighter. You actually have to go down the street to do the fight.
It doesn't
Like, what?
look. It's not like open world or anything like that, but it does have these sort of like final fight, beat 'em up, almost Streets of Rage type
Yeah.
areas, which I'm really into. That's Capcom's roots when it comes to the side-scrolling fighting games, Metro City, all that fun stuff. Like it's so cool to see that brought into this franchise here because I'm bad at beating people up in Street Fighter, professionally, competitively, terrible.
Real
at it.
life.
Real life.
You're amazing.
Yeah, but just getting to run around this world, doing single-player stuff, beating people up, that sounds so cool to me.
Yeah.
No, I mean it's kind of brilliant. I'm gonna call it out for what it is. This is like very clearly going to be kind of a games as a service type of thing. Like this is the hub world. This is going to be if they're concerned about there not being enough content at launch, I think treating it as like this is a place to hang out. Like this
Right.
isn't just a lobby where you're waiting for a fight to start. Like you're going to be running around and doing stuff. I wonder if we're going to see like character customization a bunch, but like that is a really kind of good way of looping in more casual players is to have maybe not even just conventional campaigns single player stuff, but having like having a city to run around and explore.
Trimmings around.
It is
Yeah.
it is. I'm so glad we're moving past this like stare at a menu screen while you're waiting to get into a match and a lobby. Let me walk around. Let me change my customization. Let me if I see somebody else like, hey, let's go into a training mode and let's spar for a bit. Let's hit the lab.
Another game that handled that really well, along with splashing paint around everywhere, was Splatoon. And that's kind of that hub world of like, oh, you can go over here and customize. You can talk to the DJs. You can hang out.
I was like, how are you going to tie this back to Resident Evil? But no, you're totally right. And I think it is, Jada, I think you're totally on the money in terms of like, that is the thing that breaks down barriers for people who are scared by fighting games, like me. Because I go into a match and I'm like, I don't know the combos, I'm done, goodbye. And
Jonathan, I'm sorry about that one time that I perfect 2 rounds in a row. I couldn't. I was in.
you knew going in I wasn't good, and yet you still did it anyway.
Well, I mean that's the that's the double-edged sword of fighting games.
Yeah.
It's like there is an incredibly hardcore community surrounding them who are really, really good, and they beat the crap out of us.
Yes.
Like I mean, I want to go in there and mess around, and like the issue is finding matchmaking and having that sort of push me pull you of like making it challenging enough to keep people hooked without just completely scaring them off. So
they
like,
should
that's-
let us use double-edged swords to fight those guys.
I just want to run around the streets. I don't want to fight. Can I fight people with cardboard boxes on their heads? Apparently, I can.
Yeah,
So-
it's so pretty too. Like,
yeah, it's a really beautiful city. We're seeing life and like day and night of it. We're getting a whole sense of this as a world. And I think Max, to your point of like whether this may be on the PlayStation blog now as we're saying this.
Yep.
So if any of our producers catch that, please let us know. But yeah, I could see this totally being the basis for a games as a service because they want to, like Jada, as you were saying, they were light at launch for Street Fighter V, but they supported that. They supported 4 for years after.
Yes.
And they're probably going to do the same here.
And credit where credit's due. When we first saw the Street Fighter VI reveal, the logo was bad. We just saw some packs. It seemed very muted. No problem with packs. Show them all you want. But like it was muted, and this brought all the vibrant energy, all like that fun craziness that I associate with Street Fighter as a franchise. And kudos to Capcom for bringing that here today.
No, seriously.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the highlights. There was one other big one. We're running short a little bit of time before we have to go to a break, so I'm just going to briefly mention it. We can maybe talk about it after the break, though. But Final Fantasy XVI also closed the show.
Yes.
To talk about heavy hitters from beginning to end, we're, I think, going to maybe get a little deeper into it. We did get a summer 2023 release window for it. Obviously, those things can change. There was also a very nice message from Yoshida, I believe, the producer, kind of talking about how we hope this can be an escape for people. We're really passionate about this one. One thing I do want to briefly touch on, and we'll dive in deeper later, but Max, you were sort of saying it's weird to have a new Final Fantasy because 15 was.
No,
so
we've gotten like we had 15, which was announced I think when I was in high school, and
As
we
versus
knew
13.
those characters for a while, and then we had 3 Lightning games, so we
Yep.
kind of got used to seeing her, and there was 14, which has been getting stuff added to it for however long, and then they remade 7. So like for them to card out a completely new, I mean even what was the hack and slash that just came out, the one
Oh, Stranger of Paradise.
right, yeah, even that is like going back to Final Fantasy 1 characters, so like it's kind of weird for them to card out like new people entirely and just be like, who are you? I guess I have to play the game to find out.
Yeah, and it was an absolutely gorgeous look at the game. It was a pretty lengthy one as well. I think we saw a lot of the summons, I guess, the usual Final Fantasy summons that you expect, the sort of gods of the universe. But it was packed. Jaded, before we have to jump off, how did you feel about the summer date?
The summer date?
Yeah,
I think it's perfect. I think Final Fantasy is a perfect game for the summer when there's normally not a lot of games. Look at us right now. There's not a lot that's new coming out that we're waiting to play.
Right.
Like how great would it be to have a Final Fantasy today to play during our summer drought? So I think they're really smart in getting ready for 2023, and they're gonna.
The weather's hot. Everyone's at the beach. Let's stay inside and play a 400-hour RPG.
Yes,
That sounds like every summer I had as a kid.